Hey, welcome to Spiritual Direction and Soul Care Sunday Live every Sunday, 2 p.m. Whether you're watching on the broadcast or the replay, really glad that you are with us today as we continue our Easter season celebration called Great Days, where we look at possibility and creativity and imagination and hope. And today I'm really excited because we are going to definitely dig in to some great stuff, some insanely practical spiritual tools for the journey, as well as just kind of reflect on one of the ways that we can cultivate that Easter outlook, that Easter posture of seeing possibility and creativity and imagination and hope. You know, whether you come from the Christian tradition or not, the season of Easter is not just one Sunday, but it's considered 50 days of celebration where we cultivate an outlook and a spiritual posture of renewal, of believing in restoration, of believing that there is always some life always comes after death, that death never has the last word, whether it's literal death or all the different kinds of death that we face in our life, the struggles. Life is complicated. Life can be hard. Life has a lot of suffering in it. And yet we have this amazing capacity to have a posture of hope and healing and be agents of healing and to have an outlook that has an imagination for transformation. And so, like today, I'm really excited because we are going to dive into kind of like what does it mean to cultivate that open-heartedness, some ways that we can cultivate open-heartedness, or what we would call even tenderness, you know, the ability to push through and kind of like hack our brains and push through and create new kinds of connections in our minds, even after we've experienced hard things. And even when we've experienced trauma, we have the ability to cultivate openness and tenderness in us. And life is better when we have that posture because it creates deeper connections with ourselves and with others, and we're made for connection. And so I'm really excited about a real nuts and bolts way of what it means to cultivate tenderness with courage and curiosity and compassion. And we're going to get into that in a little bit here. But I also wanted, before we got into that, I wanted to just recommend some things to you guys because I'm reading some books that have been really helpful for me. One that I'm working through right now is called How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's part of a whole series of books that he's a how-to series. He has one called How to Love. The next one I'm going to dive into after that is How to Relax. But he has he has little books on everything from how to see, how to walk, how to sit, how to fight, how to eat. It's a great little series of books. And they all come with like very easy one page, easily digestible thoughts on loving, relaxing, fighting, eating, seeing, walking, all those things. It's pretty cool. So I highly recommend it to you. And another book that I'm thinking about diving into as well, that I just got, I have not started it quite yet, but I've been seeing it everywhere. And so I decided to grab it, and it's called It's Not You, It's Everything. It's Not You, It's Everything. What Our Pain Reveals About the Anxious Pursuit of the Good Life. And I'm really excited about it because it's all premised on the question of what if our pain that we've experienced in life is telling the truth about the world of restless competition we're trying to survive? And what if we listen to that pain? And what if we were actually okay despite all the messages in life? So I'm really excited about diving into this week. It's by Eric Minton, and the other two books, the How-To series by Thich Nhat Hanh. Yeah, I'm really excited I recommend them to you guys. It'd be awesome for you guys to check those out. So anyway, we are, like I said, during the great days of the Easter season, as we're thinking about possibility and creativity and imagination and having hope. For us to cultivate that posture, it's important that we really cultivate our hearts, that we cultivate a deep attentiveness to what is deep within us, the deep longings and the things we're made for. That even science and neuroscience are showing us we're hardwired for. And so today, I really want to dig into this idea of cultivating tenderness. And then if we have time at the end, we'll also do a guided centering prayer meditation time that kind of dovetails off of that. So, like I was saying, life is hard, right? Like being a person is complicated. Being a person can be hard. We experience difficult things, and those things can make us kind of withdraw and really prioritize on protecting ourselves, right? Um, the ways we are designed to protect ourselves cut us off from the things that we're designed to connect with to help us thrive, right? So cultivating tenderness is really, really important, right? The capacity to be sensitive to your own needs, the needs of others, the world around us. And a lot of times when we go through trauma or pain or suffering, we have these structures in our brain that kind of numb us over and make us prioritize our focus on safety and control, right? Shutting down unpredictability. So we go super high control, but then we go super low connection then. And so those defense mechanisms, those survival tactics, right, are really important for us maybe in the near term, right, to get out of danger. But what happens is oftentimes we get stuck and we forget that we're actually made for connection. We're made for we do better when we have deeper human connection. We do better when we're connected to our lives, to our food, to our bodies, to the beautiful sunshine that's shining outside my window right now, right? We're made for those things. But the way we also defend ourselves cuts us off from those things, and we get stuck there a lot of times, right? We get this sense of wanting to control our life, and we have this feeling of threat if we can't control our life, and we feel like it's our fault then, right, if things don't work out, or we interpret our environment or our relationships around us as threatening, and we see others as being a threat, even when there's nothing to be afraid of. That's one of those signs that we've gotten stuck. We've gotten disconnected from the deeper human longing for connection and meaning, and living in that space of seeing what is possible, living in that space of an imagination for transformation, living in that space of that natural tendency of the human to have hope, right? And those overwhelming feelings, though, right? They get housed in what we call our limbic system, and that regulates much of what the body does and kind of bridges the gap. Our limbic system kind of bridges the gap between the physical world, our physical experiences, and our psychological, spiritual dimensions of what it means to be ourselves. And so when we've been hurt, a lot of times our coping mechanisms, we get dysregulated in our coping mechanisms, right? Get us shut off. So we live in this kind of state of fight or flight, right? It's like that, like I was saying, those structures of your brain, the emotional parts of the brain that kind of house these structures called the amygdala and the hippocampus, all these things, those go into overdrive. And we switch from being open and receptive to the world to this heightened state of protectiveness that's called shutdown, right? And this has profound effects on our core, right? If we stay there, because it cuts us off from ourselves and from others, and we're made for connection, right? And that connection inspires creativity. That connection, as we interact with others, opens up to us what is possible and gives us new understandings of how the world works and how things could be and all those things, right? So when this happens, we get stuck in kind of like a basic survival mode, right? And our brain is telling us that giving and receiving love and tenderness isn't a priority right now. Kindness and compassion, though, are really important for our survival as well. That's what I've been saying, right? we depend on that connection. And so the irony is that when you're finding things difficult in life, the default position then is to blame yourself. And so learning how to be kinder to ourselves and to accept the kindness of others is really, really important. So this is why cultivating tenderness is key for having us living in a posture and getting ourselves back into a posture of openness and possibility and rediscovering hope and pushing through into that, right? So, compassion and cultivating tenderness for ourselves and for others actually helps create a protective barrier for our souls, so that we don't get stuck in the shutdown, right? And realize that kindness, compassion, right, despite our brain wiring, right, kindness and compassion it's always time. It's always time for kindness and compassion. It's always time for healing. It's always time for deep connection. It's always time for transformation. It's always time for hope. Okay. See, it may take different forms, but we're made for it, and we're made to give it as well as to receive it. I was thinking about this today, because the scripture that is assigned for this Sunday in the Easter season, one of them is from the book of Revelation. And I know the book of Revelation is this kind of weird, freaky book that gets misused and misunderstood a lot. But there's this one passage in Revelation 21 where the writer has this vision. And the writer has this vision of what is possible, of something that is new, that is coming even after a lot of pain and suffering. And it says this, it says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and first earth had passed away. And I saw the holy city coming out of heaven. And I heard a loud voice saying, the home of God is among people. God will dwell with them as their God. They will be God's people, and God will be with them. And God will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. So I love this text because even though Revelation, like I said, is misunderstood and misused oftentimes, it has these windows that get to that human core, that deeply embedded human intuition and desire and longing for wholeness, for connection, for everything, right? Everything ultimately belonging together. It's such an amazing vision, right? So when we are struggling, when we are in pain, when we have been traumatized, when we are carrying and responding to difficult situations and our brains are telling us kindness and connection and all those other things, that it's not time for that right now, right? Those protective moves have kind of become maladaptive for us, right? So how do we come back to ourselves, right? How do we come back to the tenderness that lies deep within the human heart, that is always waiting there within you, right? That soft, safe part of the core of you and me. How do we come back to that? Well, let's get into how do we cultivate tenderness to get that helps us get back in touch with ourselves. We're going to talk about courage and curiosity and compassion. Right? The first step is by accessing courage, courage to act differently toward our own pain, right? When it surfaces, or to notice it and sit with it, right? Rather than to mask it with distractions. Like I said, these reactions are kind of wired, they're wired into our brains. So it takes a choice. It takes awareness, seeing it, and then a determination and kind of conviction to make the change and to say, I can choose to approach my pain differently, right? I don't have to have my pain determine who I am, and I don't have to have my pain determine how I'm going to respond or cope in this moment. I have the ability to choose how to respond to pain differently. So how do I say this? Uh, Courage is needed, right? To be able to help us pause, because that's when it's possible to then open up to what's actually going on. And then as we open up a space of awareness and connection, right, it's then easier to become aware of the actual thoughts that we have and begin to question whether or not those pain thoughts, those thoughts driven by pain, right, are really ultimately true, right? Because remember, like when we get in pain, our first inclination is to blame ourselves or to attack other people. But we tend to blame ourselves and we go, I'm in pain. Somebody must have done something wrong. Or even if somebody did something wrong, then we go, I'm in pain because they did something wrong to me and therefore nothing will ever be good. Therefore, this is what I will always feel. This has completely destroyed my life and it will always be this way, right? Like we go to these places, but when we push pause, when we have the courage to say, I'm going to approach this pain differently, and we push pause, we become aware of the kind of totalizing ways we're thinking, right? How we're choosing to let go of that deep drive in our hearts for ultimate connection and everything being restored and connected, where that everything is headed toward spaces of healing, that like the passage in Revelation saying we're working toward and headed toward a space where we're deeply connected with God and others, and there's no more pain and every tear is wiped away. That kind of like image of hope, right? When we get in pain and we don't push pause, we believe that that's not even possible, and that some of us even then believe that somehow we deserve it. We deserve it being bad, right? We do these things to ourselves, right? So we begin to question the ultimate truth of these thoughts, and we wonder if they're having an actual harmful effect on their state of mind. So oftentimes people can do things to us, but then we compound the hurt by accepting the assignment of their pain that they've passed to us or that they've inflicted on us. And we accept the assignment and then we go, yep, it's all the way. This is the way it's always going to be. And so then the pain, even if something really bad has happened between you and someone else, we make it worse because we accept the assignment and believe that this is ultimate reality for ourselves. And it's not, right? So having the courage to really push pause and to choose to approach our pain differently and to assess the thoughts that are flooding in, right? Because those flooding thoughts, right, are part of this self-protection that works when you're living in a hunter-gatherer society or an ancient society, and you need to really make sure everybody's survival depends on it. But now these are what we call maladaptive spiritual responses, right? So once you get there, then the next step is curiosity. Cultivating curiosity, asking questions about yourself, right? Asking more questions about others, asking more questions about your environment, right? This can encourage and this cultivates empathy, even a sense of empathy toward the person or situation that might have been hurting you, right? A sense of embodiment in the world. Because remember, like so often we disconnect our thoughts from ourselves and where we are, right? And so then we feel separated within ourselves, when in reality, empathy and curiosity returns our thoughts back toward ourselves and our situation and brings us back together, body and mind, as one place. Where am I right now? Why do you think what is this that is actually happening? Where am I in this? Where is this person in this? What is actually happening around me, right? So curiosity, right? And so living from a place of curiosity means being aware then of a new way of seeing, right? A new way of being and belonging, right? Outside of yourself, rather than remaining stuck in a negative internal thought loop. You see that there's other ways that are waiting for you to step into, right? You're literally hacking your brain, like your brain's fight or flight protective responses. You're literally hacking that, and you're getting back into seeing what is actually possible for me here. Oh, I can step into that way of being and belonging. Oh, I can choose this way of responding to my pain. I can respond this way to the person who hurt me, right? So that's the second step, curiosity. And then the third, finally, is we start to reach then for compassion. And I know we talk about compassion a lot. Everybody talks about compassion. Oh, I'm so compassionate. I feel so bad for you. Oh, what can I do? I feel bad that you feel bad, right? We talk about it a lot. right? But compassion is really born out of a deep wired desire to care, right? And see, this is why cultivating tenderness is so important for cultivating all these other things, right? It's kind of core to being able to build a posture of possibility and hopefulness and leaning into creativity and imagination and all these things, right? Because it's about these competing deep wired things within us, deep wired impulses within us, that we still have the ability to step above and move toward the deep wired parts that you don't want to let go of, right? Deep connection, compassion, right? Being our best selves as humans are designed to be, right? So we have this deep wired connection, desire to care for ourselves and others, but it's underpinned by kindness and benevolence, not duty and fear, right? This is where religion gets us in trouble a lot of times, right? Church world gets us in trouble a lot of times. This is why some of us have walked away from these spaces, right? Because even the deeply wired, built into human impulses for deep connection and healing connections and the compassion that drives that, right, gets underwritten by religious language about you better do it. You're not a good person if you don't do it, right? Like it's driven by duty and fear, right? You're also sometimes in religion told the lie that like these deeply embedded impulses to care and to provide and to connect in meaningful, loving ways, we're a lot of times in religious spaces taught to doubt that. We're taught to doubt that that's even really in us as humans. And the only time that that happens is because of some outside voice or community saying, well, you better do it out of duty and out of the fear of what will happen if you don't, right? Instead of actually really stepping back and thinking and going, wait a minute, it's actually very natural for human beings to care when someone's suffering. It's actually very natural for human beings to want deep, meaningful connections. We know this. We intuitively experience this. But oftentimes religion makes us doubt that reality about ourselves, right? It's very interesting. I mean, it's something that a writer named Dacher Keltner, who wrote a book called Born to Be Good. And he's a professor of psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. And they have a whole center called the Greater Good Science Center, where they study this about human beings. And this writer says that the argument or the idea that humans are instinctively self-serving, that we're instinctively greedy, that we're instinctively selfish, that we're instinctively motivated by money or fame or power is actually inaccurate when we look at the actual studies. Now, does that mean that humans aren't ever? No, we clearly do sometimes act in our best interest at the cost of others. Yes, we have this impulse in us. It's not denying that that's not there, right? But that's not the kind of core reality for a lot of humans. The most successful animal communities in nature, right, are the ones that demonstrate the greatest sympathy and care and concern for their members, whether that's primates or birds or whatever, right? Those communities have the most offspring. They provide them with the best care. So it shows us that there is a drive rooted in the human self, right? Even in our biology, right? That there's a biological basis for our compassion, right? And the drive to care for others, for other humans. And in fact, the act of compassion, when we move into this third step of compassion, giving a warm smile or a friendly wave, it releases the chemicals of oxytocin in our bodies, which is the hormone responsible for making us feel more kindness and more connection. It releases it into our bloodstream. So the more compassionate we are, right, even with a simple smile or a wave, actually, when we do that, it feeds more compassion. Yeah, compassion begets compassion, right? It's like the great mystic Christians who say, love calls forth love, right? Right? The one who's been loved much loves deeply. The one who's forgiven much, which is a form of compassion, loves much, Jesus said, right? So this is rooted actually in how our bodies are actually designed and what we are as human beings, right? And and so while being a human, like I'll say, being a human is hard sometimes, right? It's just complicated, right? And that's why it's important to remember the ability to give has a limited lifespan without self-compassion involved in it, right? So compassion can't always be going outward. Self-compassion, it's this holistic reality of compassion that cultivates profound tenderness within, and then it flows out to others. But we can't always pour out to others if we don't also direct it toward ourselves. So in fact, right, any extended period of giving without taking time to replenish with compassion to self-care, right, is going to be draining. And so to give and to receive is to become more present with others, to become more present, to see how our lives are interconnected. And it cultivates tenderness, right? Courage, curiosity, compassion, right? The courage to approach our pain differently, to know that our pain does not get to say how all of reality has to be, right? This is an Easter mindset, right? Death, pain, difficulty does not get the last word. You have the power to choose to courageously approach your pain differently. And the first step of approaching it differently is with a posture of curiosity, not evaluation, not judgment, not grand statements about if it's right, wrong, good, bad. It's just saying, I wonder what's actually happening here. And I'm not going to believe that just because something bad has happened to me, then that's the final word. That's the verdict on my life and who I am. No, but what else could I be? What else can I do? Maybe that pain has shut down a whole portion of your life and there's no going back to it. Well, curiosity, that doesn't mean that's the final word for everything. Standing there looking permanently exiled from your old life, it's the curiosity of, well, what kind of life can I have going forward then? What are the new ways of being and belonging that I can create, that I can cultivate, right? Curiosity, which then invites us into compassion, right? As I step into new ways of being, step into new ways of understanding what's happening, new stories in my heart and mind, then I can say, well, what kind of connections do I need to cultivate to help support that? How do I keep giving and receiving and being present to my life and to the people I have around me? Say, it's all cultivating tenderness. So, because I am deeply committed to insanely practical tools, I want to give you some things around courage and curiosity and compassion. Okay. So, cultivating tenderness, cultivating open heartedness takes courage, curiosity, and compassion. So, how do we cultivate those three things that cultivate tenderness and openness and deeper connections so that we can live with more hope, live with an imagination for transformation, so that we can live in these great days of Easter, have an Easter mindset, have a mindset of possibility and creativity and generativity and deep connections and all these things, right? So here's some practical things. Cultivating courage, right? A simple practice that's called box breathing. Box breathing for just a minute or two every morning, just in the morning, can help you find the space between the things that happen in your life, situations and people and events, right, and the way you respond to them. It helps you push pause, right? So what is box breathing? Well, I'm going to invite you right now just to listen to the sound of my voice. Wherever you are, just maybe close your eyes, okay? All right. Invite you to close your eyes. And the first thing you do is you see in your mind's eye, you visualize a box or a square, okay? Just do that right now. We're going to cultivate courage. First, imagine a box or a square. And now imagine drawing a line along one side of the box as you breathe in through your nose while slowly counting to 4. Just imagine drawing a line as you breathe in through your nose and count to 4. And continue along the next side of the box as you hold your breath for 4 seconds. And then draw the third line as you breathe out through your nose for 4 seconds. And finally, create the last line as you hold again for 4. Like, I've already felt like somebody literally has put the brakes on my physical, emotional, experiential flow just by doing that alone. Okay. Now, you can open your eyes. Tell me if you've experienced something similar. Just a deep breath in, holding it as you imagine yourself drawing the line around the lines of the square, right, in your mind. And you breathe in, you hold it for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you hold again for 4, right? Like, I literally just felt, even as I was describing it, like somebody put the brakes on, like a palpable feeling of pause. Okay. Now, when you do this, you do that 5 times. You draw around the box or the square in your mind 5 times, right? So 5 times, there's 4 sides to the box, right? 4 seconds each. 5 times 4 is what? 20, right? So it takes 20 seconds to just slow it down, right? Do it 5 times like that. And then you either make note in your mind, or you might have a little notebook or a journal. Just jot down, now that you've pushed pause, just jot down any challenging events or situations or people, and just explore your feelings that come up from that paused state. Okay. So that way you can just see it, right? Because remember, cultivating courage that helps cultivate tenderness is about pushing pause long enough to recognize the feelings and emotions, the fight or flight things that are coming up, and say, this is what's coming up for me. And I can choose to respond to that differently. I can do something different with that. I can feel those feelings, but I don't have to let those feelings and the thoughts that come up along with them tell me what my reality is going to be or tell me who I am. Right? And so as you engage in that kind of a practice daily, you can do this at the beginning of the day. The original recommendation is at the beginning of the day, but find a place every day where you can do this, right? It's literally 20 seconds of pushing pause, jotting down some thoughts, and then you can jot down some thoughts and take a few more minutes just to go these are my feelings. That may be the reality of how I feel, and I feel it and I honor it, but what are those thoughts telling me about reality? What are those feelings? What kind of thoughts are rising out of those feelings? And what are they telling me about who I am and how things should be? And is that true? And is there a different way that I can respond? Is there a different story I can tell myself? Are there different thoughts that I can choose to have? See? And so engaging in that practice daily helps you find more resilience and reduces the impact of the fear, right? The flight and fight and fear impulses of your life, and helps you move away from duty and fear into kindness toward yourself, benevolence toward others and different situations. Now, that's courage. Okay. Then here's some things to cultivate curiosity and strengthen curiosity. So one of the best ways to invite tenderness and open-heartedness into your life is through this adoption of a curiosity mindset. That's an attitude that focuses on possibility, right? Right, in these great days. So you can do this by asking these kinds of questions, okay? You could ask a question like, why am I struggling with this feeling? Why am I struggling with this situation? Why? Right? This isn't time just to rant and go, because and redo the whole thing. It's really like a push pause and go, why am I struggling with this? Right? Why is this situation with this coworker who said they would do this thing, but then they didn't? Why is that bothering me so bad? Because it's not like they haven't ever dropped the ball before, but now it's really, really ticking me off, or it's really annoying to me. Right? Right? Like, I had a whole conversation with my 2 older girls today because we were doing some work around the house, cleaning up and stuff. And we just need some help, like, we all live here. And, in classic, young teenager kind of fashion, there was like kind of some like comments back, and it just really got to me. And I was like, and like, logically, I understand why teenagers smart off. And so I did, what I mean? But like, it really got to me this time. So like, we had a whole conversation where I was able to say, hey, this is the reason why this bothers me. These are the things that like helps me, it helps me when you respond this way to me, but when you respond this way, it's not helpful. It kind of frustrates me, and I just need that help. Right. So like having that ability to push pause and really be able to identify why I'm struggling with what I'm feeling, right? Or why I'm frustrated with the situation and be able to express it has already helped me connect more deeply with my kids, right? And at the end of the conversation, they're like, I'm sorry, and better connection, better understanding that it's not about, you having the fear that you're like gonna make dad mad, or I have the duty to like respond well to my parent. It's about understanding dad better because dad's trying to share and understand himself, right? See, it's already revolutionary when we demonstrate curiosity and then express that with each other, right? Which called forth what? Compassion, right? Compassion and a desire to make it better, right? On the part of my kids. This works for all ages. It really can work, right? Another question you could ask is, what would it feel like to be another person and have to cope with this in life? So maybe there's a person like you really respect or trust, and they're in the same situation, and you're like, what would it be like for them if they were in this situation? How would they cope with it, right? That can help us get outside of ourselves and see that, again, that curiosity of another way of being that might work for us. And at the same time, or you can think about the situation if the struggle is like conflict. This is about asking that question about what's this like for this person and how might they be coping with it, is a way to develop empathy with them, even if they're the person who frustrated you or hurt you, right? But developing a humanizing set of connection with even the person that you're frustrated with. Isn't that amazing? And always at the same time, you have to remember you have your own struggles and you find life difficult at times. And when you notice yourself becoming frustrated or making assumptions, take a moment to engage in a quick and imaginary question and answer session. Either in your head or in a notebook or whatever, right? The answers there could help your perspective and cultivate more empathy, right? Not like question and answers to be like, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions to help you understand why you're bad and why you did wrong, right? But like, hey, what actually happened here? Why do you think this is this way? Why do you think you would have done this? Why would I have done that if I was in your shoes? Like, to kind of pick up what I'm putting down here. And then finally, the compassion component. Right? You can engage in a short daily practice that's described and developed by a mindfulness teacher named Tara Brach. She did a talk called The Revolution of Tenderness. And you can find it and watch it on her website, tarabrach.com. And what this involves is calling to mind people in your life and consciously appreciating them by seeing their fundamental core goodness, their shared humanity, right? And by doing this, you cultivate feelings of tenderness for them. And you just begin by sitting quietly and thinking of someone you find easy to love. And I mean, this could even be a pet, for crying out loud, and you see the kindness and capacity for love that flows through their being, and imagine yourself offering them a gesture of care, right? It could be putting a hand on their shoulder, rubbing their back, like when my youngest is sitting in the kitchen eating cereal, which is like all the time. When I walk by, I'll just like pat her on the back, or I'll run my hand down her hair, down her head. It might not say anything, but just a little gesture of connection and care, right? And then you bring, as you're doing this mentally in your mind, you bring to mind another person or a being, and you see them when they're happy. You see them when they're expressing love. And again, you imagine that gesture of care, and you visualize them communicating the goodness that you see, whispering words of kindness to them. And that practice is about seeing the field of love that's ever present all around us, but can be hard to connect to for us. You see? Those are the three ways you can cultivate tenderness: with courage, curiosity, and compassion. And that's it. Cultivating tenderness with yourself and with others. And this helps us live every day as a great day full of possibility, full of hope. It helps. Do you see how even like that last bit about compassion? I mean, that if that's not cultivating an imagination for transformation, I don't know what it is. It's choosing and practicing seeing others and yourself differently, but all living within a field of love and connection that is all around us and that we create and that we sustain ourselves. And that's how we get past the shutdown and the fear, but move deeper into connection and presence. And then that cultivates so much more creativity for us. We know that compassion and connection cultivates creativity and possibility and resilience. That's it today. Sunday Live. Great Days, Part 3. We're cultivating tenderness, talking about courage and curiosity and compassion. I hope you've enjoyed it today, and I hope you're having a beautiful day and a beautiful week. And I hope that you find time for yourself as you cultivate these things. And I just want to leave you with a quick, easy, like you're like, hey, like being mindful, I'm really busy, like taking time is hard because I've got a lot going on this week. Well, here's a quick, simple kind of like little gem for you before we go. This is kind of like mindfulness on the go, okay? One last thing for you. Take time, because you can, even though your week is busy, even if you feel like mindfulness feels like it's hard, right, or whatever, before you get into any of this, just take time from time to time throughout the day to intentionally listen to sounds. Listen to sounds. Several times a day, just stop and just listen. Open your hearing 360, like a 360 degrees, right? As if your ears were like large radar dishes, listening out for anything, right? And listen to the obvious sounds around you and to the subtle sounds all around you. Listen with the mindset of as if you've landed from a foreign planet. It's the first time you're hearing everything around you. And see if you can hear all the sounds as magic, or as music rather, as music being played just for you. Just for a few seconds. That might be just the first step, right? To cultivating a posture of openness and mindfulness on the go, even in your busy week. If you have any questions or want to go deeper about cultivating tenderness, courage, curiosity, compassion, send me a message or comment on our Facebook page. We have a growing community of people on the Facebook page. Invite your friends to come join us and let's go deeper. Let's learn more about what it means to live with an imagination for transformation and cultivate this tenderness that we need so that we can go deeper and make better connections with ourselves and others and our lives around us. Have a great week. We will see you guys next Sunday for Sunday Live.